there.
Hi.
We are the
Dyslexia Duo.
Each week, we sit down with amazing people, including top researchers and experts in dyslexia, powerful advocates, affected individuals, and more.
Together, we break down the myths, share real stories, highlight research and strategies to advise our listeners about this prevalent learning disability.
Come join us. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Amy.
So today we have a very special guest with us. Would you like to introduce our very special guest?
Yes, we have Leta Palmiter.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Thank you.
So, Leta, I had met you at the ALTA conference back in May, and you were talking to me about all the different exciting things that you have going on, and I'm excited to hear everything that you shared with us there. Unfortunately, Amy and I were doing the live podcast at the time, so I didn't get to talk to you a lot in detail, but my husband got to hear so many different things. So he relayed a lot to me about what you've been doing there in Mississippi. So can you share a little bit about what led you to, one, your career, and what led you to your career today?
Absolutely. I say all the time, dyslexia found me before I found it. I started out as a classroom teacher, and then I accidentally fell into a special education position and loved it. Just loved it. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was where I was supposed to be. But there were students in my classroom who were bright and creative and could tell me a story, but couldn't decode the words on the page. And I was missing something. I just didn't have the skill. So that realization led me to get my dyslexia therapy degree and become a CALT. It is the road that changed everything for me. What began as a curiosity became my calling. And after becoming a certified dyslexia therapist, I founded Illuminations Center for Dyslexia. I got mad, really, and that's pretty much the story of my life. I get mad and then I do something about it, right? So, a nonprofit so that I could teach kids to read. And that, started in a basement, and here we are 13 years later, growing into a movement for literacy reform, and now with VTO reading, building technology that can help teachers everywhere do what Mississippi has done, teach reading right.
Wow.
And what is the VTO? Can you remind us?
The vertical takeoff reading is an AI-enabled platform that listens to students as they read and speak. So we have two parts of the technology for speech therapists, for dyslexia therapists, but it's listening at the phoneme level and measuring student accuracy. Again, this is perfect practice to empower teachers. AI should help teachers, not replace teachers.
Right.
That's amazing. I can see so many uses for that in the classroom for dyslexia therapists and their practices. That's amazing.
So yeah, we really, think differently about what it looks like to practice. And it was actually my husband, Mike, who came up with the name Vertical Takeoff because he builds airplane engines for the Navy. Vertical takeoff is what the F-35 and the Harrier jets do. They lift straight up before they move forward. And I love that imagery because our kids, they just need the boost. They need the skills and then they lift off. And if a child's been grounded by dyslexia, they just need someone who knows how to teach them what this code is. Mike's brilliant, but he's also dyslexic. He never went to college because reading and writing were barriers. He likes to say he's my poster child, and honestly, he's more like my rock. He's what keeps me going. He's my why. His path with dyslexia shaped my vision. And our daughter, who also has dyslexia, has never had the same barriers because early intervention works.
Very good.
Absolutely.
So what first drew you into the world of dyslexia advocacy and education? Was it your family? Was it seeing kids in your classes? What was it?
Well, honestly, frustration and love. Frustration that the kids were getting labeled as lazy or just hard to teach, and that the system was really failing them, not that they were failing. And the love for those same kids who kept trying day after day for me. Once I saw what structured literacy could do for them, how it could just lift them up and make them fly, when right instruction was given, I couldn't unsee it. And so advocacy became personal. This work that we do is about restoring confidence and dignity and hope. And so that's why I do what I do every day.
Very nice. Very nice.
So is that something that you do at your center? Is this
Yes.
something you push into other schools and also share that with schools too?
So certainly that journey has changed over the 13 years that I've been in private practice. So, but when I was still in the school doing it as a special educator, the limitations that are placed on you with the
Mm.
paperwork are very hard to navigate. I'm very proud to say that the school district that I left now has dyslexia therapists in every school
Nice.
setting. They still are challenged in the same way as I was. They have all the same students at the same grade at the same time. And it's tough work, even with high quality teachers doing the good work that they do. So what we did early was treat dyslexia,
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have that same job because they're doing a pretty good job in our school systems here in Mississippi. Now we get just the ones that are too much for that schedule. We get the hard cases at the office. And so we have lots of therapists. We see students in person, online, and hybrid. We have kids in 14 states and 4 countries.
Wow.
And we have a blend of therapy options, including behavior therapy, because these kids come with multiple disabilities. So.
Hmm. So has anything in your personal journey shaped your professional mission?
Sure, Mississippi. It's our
Okay.
state. Our state's so often underestimated. And I guess I am always going to root for the underdog. That's who I am as a human.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen our state. I've seen how when teachers are trained and supported, everything changes. So my journey from teacher to therapist to founder has taught me that change doesn't come from waiting on permission. It comes from people who get mad enough to do something.
Wow.
So when you get mad, you get moving. And,
Yeah.
and in our state, that's what happened. And there was enough forward momentum to do that.
Wow. That's incredible. So you have a book called Mississippi Rising: How the Last Became First in Literacy Growth. And it speaks volumes to the impact that the right changes can have on an entire state's student population. So can you explain that key to success? What was it?
Sure. I want you to get the visual of Finding Nemo when Nemo tells all the fish to swim in the same direction,
Yeah.
right? And he says, just keep swimming, and they pull the whole boat over. Mississippi finally got all the fish swimming in the same direction. It was about alignment when the people and the policy and the practice all got moving in the same direction. Science of reading is a new term, but it's not a fad, right? It's not a miracle. It was a mission, and we trained all our teachers in the science of reading, and we gave them coaching, and we gave them time to get good at it.
Mm.
And then we refused to let zip codes determine opportunity.
Nice.
Literacy reform's not luck. It's leadership, and it's love, and it's lots and lots and lots and lots of persistence.
Right.
So is this something that is happening in the public schools or the private schools? Is it kind of all over? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, when you're looking at the national things, we're only looking at public schools. And that's why I say it didn't matter on zip codes, because really our poorest schools and our highest schools, we saw more change in our lowest performing schools, right? We were bringing our low kids up faster. And that's what everybody's talking about. If Mississippi can do it, anybody can do it, because we had some of the poorest regions in the nation. It took a while for the private schools to go, oh, we should probably do some of this too.
Yeah.
So it has been a journey to see all of us go, oh, everybody should have this literacy thing. Decades work.
So how long did that take from you guys starting your mission to being the lowest to being the first? How long did that take?
So it's a pretty interesting trajectory. And so they start measuring in 2019 as like the first in literacy growth. And so the first NAEP would have been 1999. So looking at, almost 20 years of growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
From 2019 to 2025, we've still continued to outperform. Even when the scores dip, like everybody dipped from COVID, we just dipped less than everybody else. And so now what they're talking about is if you just adjust for poverty, we're number one. But even if you don't take any of the adjustments, we're number 9 in the nation for 4th grade literacy.
Wow.
Who would have ever thought that Mississippi would be number
Right.
9 in raw scores for literacy? And so we're beating out the Californias and the Floridas. And it's amazing to me to see that. Do we have a long way to go in 8th grade literacy? Yeah, because we're still growing it up. It takes a long time. There are no miracles.
Mm-hmm.
There are only marathons.
And do you have a lot of parent involvement? Is that a contributing factor?
I think so. I think that's why dyslexia is a part of the story, and it's why I had to write the book, because people think it's just about a law, or it's just about this training, or it's just about that, and it's not. It began at the very beginning in 2004 with a dyslexia push, and the first people getting trained in what became the science of reading, right? There had to be this awareness, and it was parents who drove that awareness then, and it's parents who do a lot of that work now. I think that the 2012 that said we screened every single child in the state of Mississippi, both in the spring of kindergarten and the fall of first grade for dyslexia, made parents aware that their kids couldn't read. And that awareness pushed change in places.
Wow. Interesting. So with your decades of experience being a certified academic language therapist and a series certified literacy dyslexia specialist, how can observational data drive the changes to meet the child where they are for the classroom teachers, for dyslexia specialists? How would you use that?
Well, the data is the story, right? Yeah. But it's not just the numbers on the page. It's not just the green and the yellow and the red. It's watching how a child approaches the word, how they self-correct, how long they hesitate. Those moments tell us where the breakdown is and how to build it back. So good instruction happens when we listen to the small details, but that's what makes it so challenging too, right? So that's why tools like VTO are so important, because it helps you do that thing at scale.
So your VTO is really honing in on those errors.
It is. So it's as if you were reading with every single kid in your classroom for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And knowing exactly where the breakdown is for every kid.
So a general education teacher could then develop small group lessons for the back table for individual kids, or, small group, something like that.
Exactly. And it's really aligned to whatever the teacher knows about this lesson, because it's so customizable. It's homework. It's individual. It's not done as a group. We're not all just reading into our microphones at the same time. You send it home. They read at home. You're involving parents. You're getting better homework than anything that you could ever do with 3 times each on your spelling words. Oh my goodness gracious, right? So better homework practice equals better results. Then the teacher only has to check the results, see who's been practicing, see where the error patterns are, and that will drive her instruction, because data really matters only if it drives instruction.
We've had a couple of other guests who have said the same thing. You can take as much data as you want, but if you don't know what to do with that data, what's the point? Other than having, look, I've got all this great data. Great. What are you doing with it? And I loved how, because this is something I harp on too. We can take these assessments and we see the red, the yellow, the green, but were you watching what that child was doing during the assessment? Are you pulling in other data to support what you're coming to that conclusion about that student?
And if you don't trust it on VTO, you just press play and you can listen to them. You can hear them reading. It's not like anybody can do their homework for them, because it's their voice and their recording, and you can hear where the breakdown is.
I love that.
So, it gives you a big macro view and a micro, and you can really track who's getting better over time. And I think that's, you able to read with every kid every day. But the reality is there's not enough hours in the day. And not every kid's going to need that micro mini lesson on blending STR, but you're going to have a handful of them that are going to need that lesson.
Yeah. So does the program automatically generate like a worksheet or a lesson idea for the teacher or anything like that?
That's a great idea, Melissa. And you know what would probably be the next step? What we've really been envisioning is that this will be the backup to whatever worksheet or you're working on. So you're telling the program what to generate, because it's going to be built from whatever sounds and symbols that you've been teaching rather than the program telling you what sounds and symbols to teach. It does give you suggestions like, hey, they're doing really well on short E. You might be ready for short O, but it's not going to give you a written piece because, again, it's supposed to be oral language, oral language, oral language, because that's the piece that's missing. There are a lot of good structured literacy programs out there, and I didn't want to create another one.
Right.
I just wanted to support those structured literacy programs with good oral reading practice because parents are told to read with their kids all the time. But how do you know whether they are coaching them right or whether they're getting better? Or how many words was that? If you tell them to read 20 minutes a night, are they?
Right.
They do
Right.
need that structure. They need a little more information sometimes.
So thinking about our kiddos in gen ed, and I'm sure Mississippi is like Texas, we have pockets of districts that do a great job at the tier 1 level. And then we have ones that are not as much. Let me just put it that way. But what should reading instruction look like for a dyslexic learner in general education?
Well, I think that it's going to look the same for all children who are learning to read: systematic, explicit, and cumulative. There's nothing left to chance. They do not get this by osmosis. It also needs to be rich. You know, children are learning to decode, but they still deserve access to meaningful ideas and real literature. Structure and compassion is a magic combination, but there's some percentages. 50% of your time and K and 1 should be spent on word work. Like, we should be doing the heavy lifting of decoding these words. There's no replacement for breaking the code.
Right. I totally agree with that.
What signs do you advise teachers and parents to be on the lookout for as red flags for dyslexia? I actually have heard a lot of teachers ask me in the past when I was in the classroom what to look for. They don't necessarily know exactly what dyslexia looks like.
Yeah. Well, in younger kids, we look for letter sound recall, blending. In older kids, it's slow reading, poor spelling, avoiding reading. But the biggest sign is when a child who's bright or curious and articulate but struggles to read. That's the mismatch, right? Dyslexia is not about intelligence, it's about efficiency. If they're not getting out of the written world what you think they should be able to get out or put out in the written world, then it's more than likely a breakdown in the back of the brain to the front of the brain that we know of as dyslexia.
Yeah, and I think that the teachers are, hopefully, with all the dyslexia advocacy that's been going on as of the past few years, I hope that they're starting to see more of that. But then leading into thinking about, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but thinking about dyslexia screeners and what that means when a teacher is looking at a screener, if it flags as dyslexic or, at risk for dyslexia, what exactly, one, should the teacher do from that point? What does the parent do? Like, kind of explain that for us too, please.
Well, I mean, don't wait. It should be a good screener should check for phonological awareness and letter sound knowledge and decoding, but it's all about catching risk early, right? So even if they're not failing school, great. Let's do some intervention before they fail school, right? We should want them to have immediate small group focus on whatever component that they're not doing well on, phonological skills or decoding or spelling. A lot of good screeners miss out on the spelling task. But if we don't put that, then we are creating a dyslexic that's functioning here and left out the dysgraphia part, right? And then you have a dysgraphic kid, right? You've got to do all of those things. That immediate small group progress monitoring, supporting the students in real time. Alex is my daughter, who's now a freshman in college. She never failed anything. I've always known she had dyslexia from the time she was 4. She never got a diagnosis because I never let her fail. But I always gave her interventions when she struggled. And she struggled in all the things we would think she did. Early decoding, let's intervene. Early spelling, let's intervene. Oh, multiplication tables, let's intervene. Every time I knew that all of my other children with dyslexia were going to struggle, my kids struggled, then we just intervene. That doesn't mean she doesn't have dyslexia. Just means she didn't get any of the harms of dyslexia because her mother was determined that she would not.
Yeah.
Did that change kind of how you feel about identifications for kids today?
We are in such a weird time with the label.
Why do you say that?
Well, because the new definition is coming out, and we're all going to disagree about some of these pieces and parts for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like we're going to put every kid into a MRI and see the way their brain works.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're starting to see that if we teach, and this is 15 years ago when I was in school to be a dyslexia therapist, I was like, now, if we just taught every kid to read like this, we wouldn't have any problems. Well, now we're starting to see if we teach every kid to read like this, we're going to have any problems. So does that mean that they don't have dyslexia if we're teaching them to read and we're preventing the problems? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the new definition says they have to fail. And I'm like, does that mean my kid doesn't have dyslexia? Probably not. But she would never qualify under the new definition.
I'm curious to see where that definition's going to go. I know because it was open to the public a while back for consideration. And there are some things that I was troubled with when I saw it.
Me too.
I think a lot of us were. And I'm wondering if it's going to be addressed this week, in IDA, if there's going to be an official, okay, this is what it is. Y'all stop your belly aching. This is what we're going with. I don't know. But there were some things that I thought this is worrisome to me.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
without getting too deep. Yeah.
I mean, I just think that if you let kids get to that point that they're asking for this definition,
Mm-hmm.
when reading feels impossible,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to create a secondary set of problems that could be prevented if you did the diagnosis on the front end.
Right.
I guess I didn't interpret the new definition as it was presented to the public. I guess I didn't interpret it quite like that it was kind of a wait to fail model.
They have to have so much significant intervention before they'll get the diagnosis, meaning there's a lot of dyslexics who will never be diagnosed. Do they need the diagnosis? Maybe not. Maybe they just need the intervention. But does that mean they don't have dyslexia? I don't know.
Well, and I think that, the identification means so much to so many people. It gives them an answer. It gives them a reason why reading is hard for them. And it gives them that peace of mind. It also gives them something to fight for and fight against. So
yeah, some of those dyslexic thinkers that reading was hard are often the most creative problem solvers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once they feel that safe, confident, capable self, that creativity is allowed to shine. And so one of the reasons therapy works so well is because we rebuild the confidence. If I could sell one thing, I would sell confidence in a bottle.
Right.
But I can't. And I'm like, okay, so I want everybody to get this early intervention. I want everybody to get, but I don't know that should prevent us from saying the reason that you had to get this early intervention, the reason that it was a struggle is the same reason it's been for all time. Your brain is slightly different than other brains.
Yeah.
I don't see the problem in having the identification and going forward with that for the child's sake, not only just when they're young, but when they're an adult going into college and things of that nature. They kind of need to know what accommodations they might need. They need to know they can speak up for themselves and tell their professors what exactly it is they need and why.
And they may need a different set of something later that they didn't need to learn to read, but they're going to need something like Alex had different challenges at different points in her life.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a one and done kind of thing.
Right. And I think that's when we think about going to, when we used to be under Section 504 in Texas, and now we're under special education, but going to ARD each year because the needs are so different from year to year. You don't want to wait till that 3-year reeval to address accommodations and modifications and things like that, because what my kid needs in 2nd grade is definitely going to be different than what they need in 5th grade.
5th grade.
Yeah, exactly. So kind of thinking about your universal screeners, what do you think are the most effective next steps for parents, teachers, and school administrators if it comes back as at risk for dyslexia?
So again, just get the interventions, get some help from the school, build a team.
Yes. Yeah, I always said it takes a village. It really is, not that we're the village people, but it takes a village, to support our students. And it shouldn't just be admin, teacher, parent. We need everybody involved in it, including the student.
And the parents just need to breathe. Dyslexia isn't your fault. Your child's not broken. Read aloud, build confidence, make reading safe again. I want every family to know that early frequent intervention works. It's going to be okay.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Amy Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, Alphabetic Phonics, and Reading by Design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discovereed.com to learn more. That again is www.discoveread.com. Discovereed, covering all your dyslexia needs.
Hi, this is Melissa with Kids First Dyslexia Services. I am excited to share with you my private practice. Kids First Dyslexia Services is a private practice that specializes in dyslexia therapy. Each one-on-one session focuses on instruction specific to your child's needs in a nurturing environment that develops self-esteem, builds confidence, and fosters a sense of accomplishment, resulting in happier kids with higher levels of achievement. We provide a professional, personalized experience, always putting the child first. We value the relationships with both our students and parents because strengthening skills and overcoming hurdles to achieve desired goals and success is a team effort. For more information, please visit www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com. That is www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com.
Let's return to the show.
So, can we talk a little bit more about your app? Just going into a little bit more detail about that. You talked about how it does provide the support. So, if a teacher wants to get your app, first of all, what is it called again?
So it's Vertical Takeoff. It's vtoreading.com. They can sign up right there. We have some different levels. So if they're just a teacher with some students, they can get like $99 for the year. It gives them all the access that they need. And if the school district, we can do different package plans. We're doing some great work right now, thanks to the support of the U.S. Department of Agriculture and rural schools, to see if we have any issues with broadband usage. Again, this is designed to support instruction, so children access their practice through any device with a microphone, meaning an iPad or mom's phone. It doesn't matter. Pops up one word, one phrase at a time, and they just read it and say, I got it. I don't got it. I got it. I don't got it. That's it. That's all it is to it. It's a very simple process, and they only do it for 5 minutes a day. And the idea is that practice is the most powerful thing that we can do for our students to build those neurological pathways.
Yes.
When they're in this phase of reading development.
So when I was reading a little bit about your app, it said something to the effect of the child reads, but it collects data and recognizes where the weaknesses are and generates the report for the teacher. Is that correct?
That's right. So if you're reading the word brag and the child reads bag, it's going to give them credit for the b and the a and the g. And then it's going to have a percentage out for the that they forgot. So each letter, each phoneme grapheme association gets a percentage, the word gets a percentage, and you get the report on how many words they read correctly. And over time, how many times they've been given how many times they've been given how many times, all of these words. And they're just building these words from a bank of over 116,000 words. We generally use the 10,000 most commonly used words as the chosen bank, but teachers can create their own bank of words. They can type it up and use that bank of words. They can choose the phoneme grapheme associations that they teach. We have more phoneme grapheme associations listed in our database than I was taught, but they're arranged from most common to least common. So you just choose the ones that you've taught. Hey, this week we've taught T-table. Like that's the one you want. They have phonemes, keywords there. So you just choose, and it is a phonics-based structured literacy program, but it doesn't align to any scope and sequence. You're not just choosing blank scope and sequence. But the cool thing is, if you want it that way, make it up, save it as a template, then your lessons are ready to go and you can assign it to a bunch of kids. But as it comes back, and you go into that kid's lesson, each one of those phoneme graphemes will have a percentage correct over time. This kid is at 90% correct on short A. And so you know that this kid has got that.
Okay.
And it says he's ready for, there's a list at the top of the lesson page that says, he might be ready for these 5 phonemes.
So does it generate a story for each lesson?
So it's just a bank of words and phrases.
Okay.
And in this coming week, we've been really delayed on the sentences and paragraphs because I don't have enough kids practicing. We can't build sentences and paragraphs until kids have practiced the words and the phrases enough so that we have a high enough percentage of accuracy on the filler words. I can't build a paragraph with the and and all the necessary little words until they've had it enough times. And so it has been about getting enough critical mass of students that are at that level so that the system can generate the passages and know at what point they've gotten it 10 times, they've gotten it 20 times before I can generate meaningful passages. Plus our AI in the background had to get better. So like ChatGPT is pretty good. We're using Microsoft Azure in the background now, and it's much better at manipulating. So they have to make sense. And I had to trust it. Like sometimes it comes back. Y'all have read decodable readers that are really bad, and I don't really love that. Yeah. So I had to make sure that it came back with something meaningful.
I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions about this. So what could people do to help you get more exposure to the app to create sentences and paragraphs? Is it just people getting on and using it?
It's really about kids using it.
Okay.
So we only have like one kid that's been using it every single day since June, but like that's not enough, right? Like I've got to have enough kids that are doing it. And it's about teacher buy-in as much as it is about student buy-in, because the teachers have to go on at least once a week, and look at their scores and generate a new lesson, or else the kids have the same words all the time. The program is not designed to run on its own. It is designed to support teachers. And that, I guess, is a default for me. I'm not willing to make it run on its own.
Right.
It's supposed to support teachers. Data drives instruction. If you're just teaching over here and you think this program's going to work over here, that's not the way I built it. So it's about finding enough people that want something to support their teaching. And then I'll know what we've got is strong enough. The system we've built is strong enough to let loose the phrases to sentences and paragraphs. It's just about ready. I've got about 25 kids in my program that use it. Consistency is the problem.
So is this, if they work on this at home, the kids are saying, I've got it, I don't have it. Are parents able to figure out how to redirect the child using it if they're not understanding or they're not getting the concept that's being presented? Or is that mainly left up to the teacher to adjust the levels?
It's mainly left up to the teacher to adjust the level.
Okay.
And so if they are really bombing out, that has been I've gone in and just turned down the temperature a little bit. The word list got too hard. But it has a lot of those gauges in it for teachers. You can turn 1 syllable, 2 syllable. You can make it hard, turn off blends, turn on blends. It's got a lot of the customizable features in it. But if the teacher's not watching, and it got too hard, it needs a teacher.
Yeah.
It needs a teacher.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if maybe there's like a parent input that the parent can like send to the teacher and say, hey, this is what I saw them doing. They repetitions, or they would omit, or they omit this sound consistently. I mean, that would be a really with it parent that's able to keep up with something like that. But I'm just wondering if there's a way that there could be a parent observation that they're watching their child go through that, and maybe submit it to the. That's just a thought. Anyway, what can parents do to support their struggling readers and spellers and writers at home?
Well, I think that it is part of the three-legged stool. Parents have to have schools and policymakers. All of us have to work together. Parents bring the urgency. They are the ones that are fighting for their child. But they have to have somebody with the expertise to help them. So it is about working together. And, the sustainability of all of this comes from money from policymakers. So we've got to have all three working together for the benefit of our kids. And keep the eye on the prize. It is about getting everybody to read, right? That's how we make progress. So parents finding their voice to fight for their kids is always going to be the magic bullet here.
Yeah.
And so you're right. The whole reason that the product was built was because I didn't know that parents could do that. Even my parents couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's some power in watching your kid read and seeing how it's correcting them.
And I think we saw that during COVID. I think that's why there was such an uproar during COVID when parents were watching their kids on Zoom or Seesaw or whatever. And they're like, hey, this doesn't make a lot of sense. I may not be an educator, but how they're learning doesn't make sense to me. And I think that parent observation can be a key piece for sure.
Absolutely.
So kind of skipping up to teachers, I know that the teachers around here especially, there's just quite a bit of burnout that I'm hearing in the community and in our school district. And I feel like it's kind of at an all-time high. I'm not in the school district anymore. Amy's not in the school district anymore. You're not in the school district anymore. So we could see that there's a reason why so many educators are leaving the field, unfortunately. And what do you think policymakers, school districts, administrators can do to support teachers to try to keep them there in the classrooms?
I think the biggest barrier is misalignment. I think teachers care. I think parents care. I think policymakers care, but they're not working together. We chase programs instead of systems. Every few years, something new comes along and we go do it, and teachers are left exhausted. We have to be consistent. We train the teachers. We support the teachers. We coach the teachers. We collect the data and we stay the course. We have to listen to them. We have to give them time and tools and trust. The Mississippi model worked because teachers weren't trained just once. They were supported over long periods of time. When teachers feel equipped, when they feel valued, they stay.
Absolutely.
That's the cure for burnout.
I saw an article, it was just yesterday, and I was telling my husband about it, that it's not Texas that's offering it, but it was like Wisconsin or something like that. They were asking retired teachers to come back because they don't have enough teachers to cover the positions any longer. So they're in a teacher shortage. And I was saying, I guarantee, it's because of all the teacher burnout, because of all the things we have to do. And I guarantee other states are going to start doing the same call. Please help, our retired teachers, come back. We need you. And I made the joke. I said, the only way I'd come back is if I could get a salary and my TRS. And even then I'd have to think about it, because it's a lot. It was a lot to do.
Well, and I think too, a lot of what I experienced is a lack of trust of my expertise and my knowledge that I brought to the table. And I'm not saying that I know I'm an expert or a researcher or anybody that is a doctor. I am not saying that, but I do bring decades of experience. I do have that one-on-one experience with the kids. I know what the data shows, but I don't feel like anytime I stepped into a meeting, I was truly heard or valued for what I'm bringing to them.
Or decisions were already made that you weren't aware of.
Right.
And it's just kind of a formality that you're there and you get to say your piece and they go, well, we're going to go this way.
Or, if there's a dyslexia screener that flags at risk. They don't call me and ask me, what do I think? Or what should we be doing? That was never included in those conversations. And I'm the dyslexia specialist on campus with the certification. So I don't know. It's just very strange.
Common.
And I think that speaks to your heart. It speaks to your, like you were saying, you just don't feel valued. So if you don't feel valued, why would you stay doing something like that when you're not valued?
Right.
It's a hard job.
It is a very hard job. There is no harder job, but it's so worth it.
Mm-hmm. It is worth it. And I so applaud the people who are still in there in the school districts just doing the work. And I applaud them. I know that they're going through a lot, especially in Texas when we did switch from 504 to special ed. Now the dyslexia therapists are having to do FIEs and goals and keeping up with their objectives and all of that. And that's a whole ton of work on a caseload of, sometimes 30
on top
people.
of therapy and having to make up those minutes from when they're in the ARDS, because that can't be put to an aide to do, in the paraprofessional in the classroom. No, it's a hot mess, not going to lie. It's a hot mess. And I'm not envious of anybody in that position right now. So what advice do you have for young educators or researchers entering the field of dyslexia instruction or advocacy?
I guess it's just fall in love with the process. It's really going to be the children. Every child, every mistake, every breakthrough teaches you something. You get better because the kids teach you.
Yeah.
The best educators stay curious. And when you get discouraged, remember, somewhere out there's a student who can now read because of you.
Yeah.
It is about finding your joy in the little things, because the other stuff is always going to be there, and it'll just be new other stuff every year. But the kids always need you.
Yeah, this is true.
So do you think that school leaders could do anything differently to increase dyslexia awareness in their schools and inevitably change student outcomes?
Lead by learning. When they sit in the trainings and when they are with their teachers and when they ask the questions and stay curious themselves, the leaders who learn with their teachers invest in their people and not just the programs. That's humility, and it gives hope, and the schools will thrive. I have been very blessed with servant leadership in my career, and servant leaders build community, and that's what changes student outcomes because they care just as much for those students as we do.
Okay.
That does make a huge difference.
So I love how you're using AI for your app you've created, and we know AI is just going to keep getting better and more refined and, everything that we need. We use AI for my personal business, and it recognizes the terms I'm searching with and what I'm doing. And it's like, Amy, I found this. I'm like, oh, I like it. But how do you think AI will continue to entwine with the school-wide academics? I know a lot of people are afraid of AI, but and I get that. But at the same time, I think there's so much good that can be done with it too. What are your thoughts?
I think of it like a electric bike and not a robotic vacuum.
Right.
So an electric bike doesn't work unless you're sitting on it and pedaling, and a robotic vacuum will work when you're gone to work, right? So I hope that AI will support teachers, not replace them.
Right.
Take away some of this manual labor of collecting data or doing lesson plans or grading or some of those things. Free them up to do the work that makes a difference, that connection with students, the creativity, the work of kids. I hope it becomes a great equalizer as far as skill level. I have a lot of concerns, as everybody else does, because humans are lazy, right?
Right.
All humans, kids and teachers alike, right? So I want us to be ethical in the usage of it. One of my students, my favorite student of all time, and I did not write this up in my answer list, but my favorite student of all time came to me in 4th grade and could speed read, had super high IQ and could speed read entire books. In like an hour, he could read all of James and the Giant Peach on my first reading with him and knew all of what happened, but he couldn't read individual words and he couldn't write a sentence. It was a very interesting case, and he would coming into my office. I don't know why I have to come here. I can read. And he would growl on the way out. I don't know why I can't come here every day. And he stayed with me for a few years, and he was just one of the most, he just taught me so much. And his parents have stayed on my board of directors and been some of our greatest supporters. And he's now a sophomore in college. He was mad as all get out because his sister and his brother both made a perfect score on the ACT, and he made a 35 on the ACT and missed it by 1 point. And he was just mad. And I'm like, dude, do you understand how rare it is? Like, my kids never didn't make a 35. And he's like, so anyway, he's off at college. He's struggling with time management as dyslexics do,
Sure.
right? So he says, I need some help, Miss Leta. So here we are having some help. Kid taught me again. He's like, I hate AI. I think it's going to ruin the world. I was like, why do you think that? He's like, what do you use it for? So I told him, I was like, it created my logo. He's like, then it really just stole somebody else's artwork and gave it to you. And I'm like, probably so. He's like, so you feel like that's ethical, Miss Leta? Probably not. So like, he just thinks so deeply about what this is going to mean for humanity and like what kinds of jobs are going to go away. But I also think that for people like my husband who took jobs that would require no emails because of his writing challenges, what would it do if you had what we have right now, not what's to come, but what we have right now, this prompting thing that could have gotten him through our scribes and our phone?
Yeah.
You know, like the world's so different. It'll allow people access because it was never his ability level that was keeping him back.
I agree. I think we don't know. I think it's an untapped thing still. We don't know the potential or what the future of AI is. Not so much the potential, but the future of AI is. I don't think kids should be using it for assignments, right? And I understand why it's been banned at schools because kids weren't critically thinking any longer. But for things for our dyslexic students and our dyslexic population, huge. It's going to be huge for them to support them in their later career and all of that.
I think we have to teach them how. Banning something is never going to be the answer. You have to teach how.
Right. I agree.
I mean, go back 20 years and you had the dot-com era and all of the businesses that boomed and we had a bust, but it was like the beginning of the internet. We are at the beginning of an era that is like that, but 10 times more growth potential.
Yeah.
Every new AI agent, every new implementation of this is a revolution unto itself. We don't know what will come out of this, and there will be things that will blow up and crash, but we just have to think about what this looks like in education, and we cannot allow ourselves to say, well, it won't affect us, because it absolutely will. And if we don't teach our kids how to use it, we're just setting them up for failure.
Exactly. I agree.
Okay, so I'm so intrigued by Mississippi and what they've done and what kind of changes that they did to increase their success academically. And what do you think that maybe the nation can do or globally people could do to have the same type of success?
Well, I mean, it's just a method. It's investing in teacher training, building data systems, staying the course. That recipe can work anywhere. The miracle was the people refusing to give up. It was hard.
You know what? You are the second person today. We've only interviewed 2 people, you and somebody else. Second person today talked about teacher training. And I think our teachers are getting the short end of the stick on some of this, or they get this training and they're not told how to use this training is another piece. I agree.
Yeah, it's not just buy a program to teach teachers. It's about investing in teachers. Treat them as the professionals that they are.
Absolutely. And do you think that at the college level, I know at the university level, I was a education major, but I wasn't trained anything about dyslexia. I didn't know anything.
It is getting better in the state of Mississippi. It has, again, long road. The Barksdale Reading Institute invested time and energy in surveying all of our public universities at the beginning of this process. And about 2015, they redid it. And I would like to see the results of the newest survey. It takes so long to right a ship like that.
That's true.
professors get to teach what they have, that academic right. They get to just do whatever they want
Yep,
to.
they
And
do.
so it can get better and it can get worse over time. And they don't pay professors very well in the state of Mississippi either. So, it's not like, but they do it just for the same reasons, because they love to teach.
Well, if they don't know about dyslexia, they're really not going to be talking about it very much either, unless they're mandated to have that in the curriculum.
Yeah, it's been mandated since
That's good.
2013, but it's a slow slog. I'm just telling you, sometimes it's a hit and miss. I've had 2 teacher candidates that just came and worked for me, and one of them was at one branch of a university and one of them was at another branch of the same university, and what they got out of those mandated courses was completely different.
Wow. Pretty scary.
It is. It is. So what message do you hope that the listeners today on this podcast are taking away from our conversation that we've had?
Reading is a human right, and every child deserves access to literacy.
I totally agree. That's a banner on my work page, my Facebook work page.
Okay, so we've got lightning round questions. This is Amy's little love child that she started in this second season of the Dyslexia Duo. So we've got these lightning round questions. So we're going to ask you kind of off the cuff questions and just see what you say. Who was your favorite teacher and why?
My high school Spanish teacher, Miss Inez Dorr. She's a safe space in a sea of teenage angst of high school. And I still see her around town. I saw her just last weekend. She's always a warm hug and a smile when I need it most.
Oh, that's
nice.
sweet.
That's sweet. Okay, what's a quote or a mantra that you live by?
This one's going to be a work one. Therapy works as fast as we can and as slow as we must.
Yep.
Progress happens one small step at a time.
I have a T-shirt
Child's
that
play.
says that. As fast as you can, slow as we need them. They need us. I have that T-shirt.
So if you could meet one well-known person, who would it be?
Dolly Parton, hands down.
Oh, why?
Storyteller, philanthropist. She started the Imagination Library. I think she understands that literacy changes lives and that kindness and goodness can move mountains. And
This is going to be an easy one for you to answer. Favorite tool, app, or resource that you would recommend to
aside from
educators?
VTO reading, honestly, a whiteboard and magnetic letters. Sometimes the simplest tools give you the biggest breakthroughs.
And you know what? Whiteboard was a breakthrough for me as an educator because I was allergic to chalk. But that was such a bad career move for me to do. But yeah, when I got a whiteboard in my room, I was like, oh, the angels sang.
There you go. Okay, what is one wish you have for our dyslexic students?
Teachers who keep showing up and give our kids success.
Favorite book or podcast? That's
NPR.
Ah, nice. Yeah, that is.
And then
great.
Dyslexia Duo is like
Right, that's right
under
after
Dyslexia.
it,
Yeah, definitely.
And your book,
Like, I
you
could
could be
do that one.
your book could be the
Yeah.
favorite too,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so it's NPR, her book, then Dyslexia Duo.
Very good.
Okay, and what is bringing you joy right now, professionally or personally?
Nothing makes me prouder than seeing my children grow up into adults who do good in the world. So I am enjoying having grown children.
Very nice.
How old are your kids?
So Jody's 26. He lives in Arkansas. He's a machinist. He can do anything. Sabrina's 25. She works for Illuminations. She keeps us running. She's also a youth minister. And Alex is 18, and she is a freshman at Mississippi University for Women studying theater. They couldn't be more different.
Yeah, that's going to
We
say.
tried, but they are definitely the light in the world.
Very nice.
I love that. Well, this has been wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for taking your time on Sunday to meet with us and be on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So this is Amy,
And Melissa.
and we're the
Dyslexia
Duo. Until later, see ya. Bye.
The Dyslexia Duo hosts are Melissa Dean.
And Amy Rodenroth. The producer is Greg Rodenroth.
Dyslexia awareness is so important. Please share with your friends, family, and anyone who needs to know more about dyslexia.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at The Dyslexia Duo.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.